Your DNA contributes more to your reality than you've ever realized or been told. And I don't mean in the sense that you're just lucky or unlucky to have certain genetics or something of that nature. You see, we have been lied to when it comes to this idea that our DNA just kind of is, it is the way it is, and tough luck if it's a way you don't really want it to be. Your DNA is absolutely changeable and malleable. In fact, it's one of its functions that we were not told about. Your DNA can shift depending on the things that you do. Now, why is this important? Is because your DNA is constantly sending out a signal 24/7 that is one of the main contributors to what you're actually able to create in your life. It's essentially one of the deepest parts of yourself. And so if you have at the deepest part of yourself a signal going out 24/7, that's, let's say, negative, on poverty mindset, it's just creating all of these problems in your life, then it doesn't matter what you want or that you want change or whatever else, it just isn't going to happen. But if you alter your DNA, if you essentially train your DNA in a certain way that we're gonna go over in this video, it'll start sending out a different signal. And again, as you get better at this and you do more of this training, this signal will start going out more automatically 24/7. It will be easier and easier for you to do this because you've essentially rewired and reprogrammed one of the deepest part of yourself, which is the DNA. And when you start getting this to the point where it's creating almost on autopilot in a positive way for you, you become an incredibly powerful creator. This is something the so-called elites and people in very small circles, secret societies, etc., are very aware of. And they go through very particular training in order to alter their DNA in a way that allows them to create powerfully. This is things their children go through as well, deep at study, doing very specific things in order to alter this as well. And so yes, in a sense of being born into one of these families or people who do these trainings or whatever else can be very beneficial. But again, your DNA is not set in stone. It is malleable, it is changeable, and it can change a lot faster than you believe or maybe thinking of at this moment. It doesn't take years and years and years and years and years of training to get this. If you really dedicate yourself, it can take months, sometimes even less, for you to start noticing the changes that come from this and for you to start the process of changing this to such an extent that more positive things start to appear in your life. This is actually why, as a little caveat here, but it's related, a lot of people in the so-called elites or a lot of people with high influence in these certain circles do not allow their children to access social media. It used to be television, all this kinds of stuff, because they're aware of what that does at this level. You'll even see people who have a huge hand in the creation of social media or things like AI or these emerging technologies and things that we, the public, use and basically say, I'll never let my kids near it. Or basically say, my children don't get to do that. I don't watch TV or whatever else because they are aware of what it does at this deep level of them. It's not because they're trying to be restrictive. It's not because they're trying to, not let their kid have fun, but they're aware of how detrimental it could be to their development if they're exposed to these things and the development specifically of that deepest level of them. And we'll go over why I'm mentioning social media and all that when it comes to this training. But ultimately, they are aware of this, and it's one of the kind of closely guarded secrets that you are creating from this level, this really deep level of yourself. And again, that it's malleable. Most people believe, nope, it's not, you can't change it. I have my, it's whatever it is, and I just have that to work with. And this secret has remained in certain circles since ancient times. This is not a new thing as far as the people in the know, the tiny percentage who know that. It goes and dates back really, really far back if you really trace it. And so in this video, we're going to be covering that a little bit, but also how you can start to train your DNA for success. Because if you are not getting the results you want in your life, your DNA right now is essentially trained for failure or at least limitation. And once you start doing this and you have it sending out an automatic signal that actually benefits you, this is when things like becoming lucky start to take place, or you seem to always have fortuitous things happen to you, or just like everything seems to work out for that person. Why is that? Because at this deepest level, they have done this. And so regardless of where it's at now, where maybe it's more negative, it's leading to poverty mindset, maybe your relationships aren't where they want. As we shift this, all of that begins to change. So let's jump into how you can do this. So like mentioned, your DNA is malleable, your vibration is malleable, but you have to make the choice to change it. A lot of people are waiting for change to just strike them or come in. And this is a very particular mindset that is going to keep your DNA vibrating at a level that does not give you what you want in your life. And so regardless of where you are now, you need to start choosing differently. Most people think that just by becoming aware of these principles or wanting something, that things are going to change. But if you're sending out the same vibration, you're connected to the same frequency, you're still feeling the same way, thinking the same way, nothing is going to change. You have to start choosing differently because you are a creator. And a lot of people but I would invite to step into the mindset that you are a creator, because if you don't think you're a creator, what's the opposite of that is you think you're a victim. Most of the time, that's what the opposite is. And therefore, you have no agency over your life. You have no ability to make choices or sovereignty to make choices, which just isn't true. You might be in a position right now where it seems like a lot of hard things are happening for you, but I promise you, through different choices, those hard things will start to shift and change. As you shift your DNA, like we're going to go over in this video, those things will start to clear up and change. And so we want to choose differently. Now, I've gone over the to me, by me, and through me levels quite a bit. I'm going to briefly go over them again because it gives us a good idea of what we're looking to change into. Now, I have another video that I just created. I think it's the one before this one, where I go over the different levels and they connect to this. I will link to that at the end of the video. So for example, if you feel like you feel more like a victim than a creator right now, you'll get to recognize through that video where you're kind of at in the process and what to do next. So I will link that at the end of this video to go watch that. It's one of the most comprehensive videos I've done so that you can identify where am I in the process and then what is the process to move further up. Basically, these three levels, the levels I make a little more nuanced than we're going to go over here, but just to give you an idea of what you can do after this if this kind of hits home for you. So there's to me, there's by me, and there's through me. Now understand that what most people are in is to me. Now to me is basically the person who says life happens to me, right? So I'm not a creator, I'm just subjected to the whims of life, right? Things just happen to me. It's that person's fault, it's this thing's fault, it's the government's fault, etc., etc. It's basically their whole kind of worldview is everything's unfair to me. Right? It's basically victim consciousness. Now, if we stay in to me, we can't create, you can't shift your DNA, all of this collapses and you can't do anything and you're always going to be at the whims of life, but more specifically, other people's agendas. So whether it's, the parasitic elite, the people who are part of that part of the elite, whether it's those who do not mean well for you at all, you're going to get hooked into something, right? They want you disempowered. To me is a disempowered state. There's no way around it because you're not being the creator. And when you don't step into what you actually are, you are disempowered. Power is being taken away. Think of what that word means. Empowered, what does that mean? You're imbued with power. You're empowered, right? Disempowered is that's being cut off or removed. When you're in to me, you are disempowered. When you are in the creatorship, you are empowered. You are instilled and kind of accessing energy. To me, it's being taken away, it's being stifled, it's being cut off, it's being suffocated, right? So that's the first thing. We don't want to be there, and if you're there, again, the levels video will kind of help you, and it's good to know if you are there. Most of you watching this now, don't worry, you're probably not mired or in the deep depths of that level. You might be towards the tail end of it. So it's good to know, because when you know where you're at, then you can start moving to where you want to go. If you are in first grade, but you don't know it, and you kind of try and do third grade stuff, and it's confusing to you, and you don't know why it's not working, it's because you're not supposed to be trying that stuff yet. You need to graduate first grade first. So you need to know where you're at, so then you can start going and putting one foot in front of the other to go where you want to go. So from first grade, okay, now I can finally complete first grade to second, to third, to fourth, to fifth, right? And then you're up the scale you go. But you need to know where you're at and be honest about that. So it's perfectly okay. None of this is better or worse. I've said this before, but a first grader is no better or worse than a third grader. It's just where you're at. So honor it. And when you honor it, I promise you'll move up quickly. Honor that you're at level 2 in the game, not level 5. Because if you delude yourself into thinking you're at a higher level, you'll never be able to actually do what you need to do where you're actually at, right? So to me is perfectly fine, but understand if you're there. The next one is by me. By me is an upgrade, and this is what most people who start taking some responsibility, this is when we're moving a little towards creatorship, not fully, but we're starting to realize, wait a second, I can create things in my life. However, in by me, it's kind of like the hustle grind mode, the I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing. So you're pushing against life, right? And so even though you're being a creator, you're not being a co-creator. And what co-creator means is you are working with the universe, God, source, and universal laws and principles to create your life. You're working in tandem with them. You are synchronizing and synergizing with them, doing your part of the process, but not stepping on the toes of the part of the process that isn't for you, right? It's kind of like you're trying to micromanage the universe when you're in by me. To me certainly does as well, but to me usually comes with very little action or responsibility. By me, more responsibility, so it's a better place to be. And in that stage, you'll still get manifestations and still be able to create stuff for you. Again, you're stepping more into creatorship, so if this is like kind of gauging where it's at, and this is to me right here, by me would be a little further up. So you're creating a little more, and then through me would be when you're here kind of fully embracing being a creator. And this is where we want to choose differently. We want to choose through me as much as we can. And by choosing it more and more often, you will start embodying it. Now, sometimes, again, if you're in to me, you need to embrace a little bit of by me. You might need to take some action. You need to take more responsibility. Perfectly fine. So again, if you're in first grade, don't try and skip the fourth. Go to second, then to third, but this will move you closer to ultimately where you want to go. Now, through me is essentially life happens through me. So essentially, life is kind of co-creating with me. I'm taking almost in a way dictation, intuition, guidance from these higher laws and principles that can see everything beyond what our human mind can see. And then we are moving in that way. We are now co-creating, understanding that we are a creator that's coming from an even larger, we could say, creator, right? We're kind of a fractal of that creator, and we can tap in and almost channel that in our own lives. But if we ignore that, we stay in by me or to me. So this is essentially what we want to choose. By the way, most people are in to me. David Hawkins, who is had an amazing body of work, specifically with consciousness, and so he describes these levels in a more nuanced way, the Hawkins scale of consciousness. He basically tested and calibrated and was able to tell that about 80 to 85% of people are in to me, maybe even more. And this was in, I think, the 90s or 2000s. So consciousness is always rising. That number may have dropped a little bit. And so you're probably getting a few people that are now in by me, but the rarest at the moment is through me. But this is where everything starts to work. This is where if you stay in this state and train your DNA around this state, everything starts to begin to work in your life. Resistance is taken out. You start becoming lucky, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to give you essentially what we're aiming for here is we want to eventually get to through me, visit that state more often, and eventually live from that place. Now, keep in mind one thing, and I say this a lot because this is one of the ways in which you do it, is your thoughts, every single thought you have has a vibration. Take a singular thought, take it from the, the horde of thoughts that you're happening, and just take one little thought. That one little thought, even though it's not a ton of energy, has a vibration. It is vibrating. Everything in this universe and our reality is vibrating. The principle of vibration, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Absolutely everything. Even things that are not physical vibrate, right? And so thoughts are the same thing. Thought has thought energy, and you have about, on average, 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And one thing I'll add here is about 95% of the thoughts you had yesterday, you have today. So basically your thoughts, unless you train yourself, unless you change this, will be the same day in and day out. Most people are in to me, meaning they are having to me level thoughts, 95% of each and every single day, equating to 60 to 80,000 of those thoughts coming from this place every single day. Each one of those thoughts has a vibration. And when you have 60 to 80,000 thoughts that have a vibration, even if it's a very faint vibration, guess what amplifies when you have more of it? the vibration. So if you have 60 to 80,000 thoughts going in a particular direction with a certain vibration, it exponentially increases the power of the vibration. Now, this might seem like a bad thing at first if you're into me, but realize it's an incredible thing, because once you start tipping the scale more towards the tail end of by me and then through me, this works in your advantage in magical, magical ways, because you're now more automatically, 95% of the time, thinking through me thoughts. And that vibration, that kind of stacking vibration or exponential vibration I'm talking about now works in your favor. So it's a great thing in place. And we just need to train ourselves out of this state into more of a through me state. But understand that every thought has a vibration, and your DNA is vibrating. Your DNA is also going through a vibration. It is also vibrating. Your thoughts are one of the most crucial things when it comes to calibrating your DNA and the vibration that it will be sending out 24/7 that will then draw back the things in your life that you want, right? Or don't want, depending on what you're doing here, right? So thought affects your vibration when it comes at the DNA level. And one of the easiest ways, or at least one of the simplest ways to change our DNA vibrational structure is through our thoughts. Now, training your thinking isn't necessarily easy. It's simple in theory. It's not necessarily easy and will take time and consistent work, which we will get into how to actually do this. The good news is, in this day and age, it is easier in the sense of the tools available to train your mind. On the flip side, it's harder than ever because of the amount of distractions, things like social media, like we mentioned earlier, things like television or television that we mentioned earlier, that are always vying for your attention. When you engage with these things, certain thoughts start coming up. Those thoughts have a vibration. You're going to think probably a lot of those thoughts, and that's going to affect your DNA. Again, there is a reason the so-called elite or people of influence or people in those circles don't allow, for the most part, there'll always be exceptions, right? But for the most part, don't allow their children on social media too much, or watching these things, or don't allow, back in the day when it was just television, right? Because they understood this. They understood that would influence their thinking, their feeling, and the things contributing to that signal they're sending out that basically influences your whole physical life and beyond the physical as well. So we need better thought control. We need better environments. And we create this. Again, you're the creator. Don't wait for someone to do it for you. Don't go like, well, how do I do that? I don't have that. We create this, and we'll go over how to do this, but we need to train ourselves to have better thoughts. We need to create certain environments within ourselves and without ourselves that allow for that to happen, which we will 100% go into. And ultimately, you have to ask a question: what vibration do you want to live from? Because again, it is your choice at the end of the day. If you are not ready to accept that it's your choice, then that's perfectly fine. You can shut off this video, because it's not going to help you. We can't move forward until you accept and want to go from to me to at least by me, because there's nothing we can do when we're in this state, because you're not taking responsibility for your life and the creation of it, which means you're disempowered. And when we are disempowered, there's no energy that you are now contributing to the creation of your life in the ways that you want. And so the first thing is, what vibration do you really want to live from? Because it ultimately is your choice. Now, that choice is harder to make, yes, and stay with in the beginning, especially if you're in these states. That is understood. Again, that's why training is involved. In the same way, when you first go to the gym and it's like, oh, I can't even lift a not so heavy weight. Well, yeah, you have never trained. Of course it's difficult. Of course it's hard, but it's your choice whether you're going to go through the process of actually putting on the muscle, or go through the process of becoming fit, or go through the process of eating right to help with this, right? That's our choice. Yeah, it might be hard at first. Yeah, when you bench press for the first time, it's hard. When you do sprints for the first time, it's bloody hard. When you try a new skill for the first time, which this is, thought control is a skill for the first time, it's hard, but it's worth it. And ask anyone who has gotten great results in the gym and they're like, yeah, I've been doing this for years. Is it worth it? They will almost all tell you yes. Or they've worked at a skill, like I'm amazing at the guitar, I'm amazing at this sport, or whatever it is. Was it worth, all that stuff? A lot of them are going to say yes, right? And let me tell you, this skill is going to impact your life more than any of those will, because this is with creating your life. right? This is creating what's actually happening in your life. So it's your choice to what vibration you want to live at. Again, you're not going to be perfect at this. You're not going to be on that at all times. But again, when you're in first grade, it will be a little harder. But when you graduate to second grade, you'll have a little more thought control. You'll get to third grade and it'll be even easier. Then fourth grade, it'll be even easier, right? And you'll grow to the point where you're in the grades where through me is just something that is at those levels. And you'll keep going from there, right? Like I, with all this stuff, keep growing. I keep exposing myself to it. I keep practicing it because once you kind of lose sight of the fundamentals or you stop doing them, it's very easy to also go back down, right? And again, expose yourself to new things and new thoughts that then take, recalibrate your DNA again back into a negative space. So you still want to keep your eye on the ball, but it becomes a lot easier. Again, using the gym analogy or a skill, I play a lot of football or soccer and also tennis. I don't have to think too much if I'm hitting a ball in tennis and doing, say, a forehand topspin shot, because I've done it so many times. I don't have to, if I'm doing a one-handed backhand, same thing. If I'm shooting a football, like it's the same thing, right? After enough time, it starts becoming embedded into your being. So understand it does get easier over time. And there's a lesson on that with the 4 levels of learning, maybe we'll cover in another video, but we want to keep moving forward here. So I will very quickly go over the radio station analogy because I have done it before. We'll just do it very briefly. But if you want a certain thing to come in your life and it exists at a certain frequency, you have to be on that frequency to acquire that thing. If you're on a frequency, say like a radio station that's 101.1, and that is a to me frequency, well, you're never going to receive what's on a by me or through me frequency, which would be an upgrade, unless you switch the station. And let's say that's 105.5 would switch the station. Nothing is going to change until you do that. Nothing is going to alter. No one is going to turn the dial for you. You have to make that choice. Again, you don't wait for the frequency to change. You start being proactive because you're a creator in changing the frequency through changing your thoughts and other things we're going to go over. Right? So with the radio station, again, you choose the frequency. Yeah, it might be difficult at first because it's, let's say the dial's rusted over and it needs a little bit of prodding to get going, but you stay with it. In the same way when you're lifting the weights, it's hard at first, but you show up the next day again, or a couple days later, you show up the next time and you show up the next time, and before long you realize, oh, that dial's moving so easily between these 2 channels now. Oh, I'm getting some muscle now. I can lift the weights a lot easier. Oh, I'm running and I'm not getting tired as fast. It is the same. Right? So keep aiming to choose that better frequency, whatever is within reach for you now, which we'll go over kind of that process, and it will just get easier and easier. And speaking of that, I'm going to give you something called the jungle analogy that will basically show you that this will get easier and easier, and not to give up, because I don't want you to live a life of to me. Now, again, it's not my responsibility to where you live or what you do with any of this, really. But I want to at least help you get to these next levels if possible. I want to invite you up. And you may or may not take that invitation, but ultimately I know what this is like and what happens there and what happens at the higher ones. I've seen it in my clients when they make this shift and just how magical it is, right? So here's the jungle, roads in the jungle analogy. And so I want you to imagine, and this has to do with your neural connections as well in your brain, to why sometimes you have habits and patterns and neural connections towards certain thoughts or thinking in this way. That's why it's so easy to access. I want you to think of it as is basically you have certain connections in your brain that you haven't traveled down so often. And so it's kind of like a jungle. And you want to make a path in the jungle to get to the next place easier. Well, if you've never traveled down that pathway, what's in front of you? It's dense jungle. And if you want to go down that pathway, you have to chop and you have to clear and you have to do all of this different stuff. And it's very difficult, right? Because you haven't traveled down that pathway. However, if you continue to travel down that pathway, even when it's a little hard, it's a little frustrating, you're going to clear more and more of it. It's going to get easier and easier. And over time, it'll eventually get to this place. This is all like shrubbery that you're going through or whatever, to where you could even build a road on it, and now it's easy to access, right? And so with all of this, again, if you just keep going with changing your thinking, again, doing the habits I'm going to give you in this video as well, it will start to shift. It's not going to offer up the same amount of resistance always. Right? It only offers that up right now because you have all of this gunk. It's harder. It takes more energy to do this because there's no clearing there. right? So you're having to chop through it. You're gonna have to do all these things and everything else to get good at it. In the same way as lifting the weights, you're not gonna lift, the 30-pound dumbbells and curl those at first if you can barely do the 15 or if you can barely do the 10, right? You build your way up to that, but that can also happen very quickly. Let's say you start at the 10s and then you move up 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds the next week or 2 weeks later. Eventually you're gonna be there to where actually 30 is pretty easy, right? It's the same with this. If you keep traveling down that path, again, trying to connect to that better frequency, it gets easier and easier. As you keep training your thoughts to be at a higher level at first, because you're used to the weaker thoughts or the thoughts that are not producing for you, it's hard at first, but as you keep going, you eventually create more of a clearing and it's easier and easier to access. Here's the good news also when it comes to this. Right now, you might have, this might not sound like good news at first, but just stick with me here. At first, if you have to-me patterns, you'll notice that the thoughts that don't benefit you are kind of like this, and it's kind of easy to access, and they're like a highway in the jungle. As you stop or reduce how much you visit those pathways, so let's say it's a negative pattern or negative thoughts or whatever else, nature starts to reclaim the path. So if you cleared out a pathway in the jungle, and let's say you cleared it out, but you stop traveling down that path, what does nature do? It reclaims it. Slowly but surely, the vines start moving across the road, new plants start to, even if there's a road, just start breaking through. And if you go back a little bit later, a couple years or so, you may not even see evidence that there was a road there at all. Nature reclaims it. And it's the same with this. Once you start moving out of to-me and you are going back less and less, this to-me road starts getting covered up by the jungle again, making it harder and harder to access, to where if you wanted to access it again, you would have to start clearing again, which you probably aren't gonna do because now you're being more intentional and you're more conscious about it, right? So it has a double benefit when you do this, and some of the exercises we're gonna give is not only does it start clearing out the pathways that help you more habitually think from this place, work from this place, and everything else, but it will also start to cover up the ones that are giving you so many problems and issues. And again, these are cleared through choice. I want to emphasize this. It's not just going to clear. You have to stick with it. No one is going to go to the gym for you and lift the weights, nor can they, right? You can have a trainer, you can have a coach who encourages you, and that certainly can amplify your progress in the gym. It can amplify your progress with all this, which is why I offer coaching, high-level coaching down below for those who think they are ready, who want to go really deep with this, and we'll basically clear this stuff out really, really quickly, right? So that's available, but even in that, with my clients, I can show them how to lift the weights, exactly when to lift the weights and whatever else. I can't make them lift the weights. You still have to make the choice to clear this out. You still have to make the choice to be on the radio station as much as you can that you want to create your life from, to move more towards through me, to go up the levels, to change your thinking, etc., etc. All right, so I'm gonna go over now some of the things you can start doing to alter, again, your DNA at this level and to basically do more of what we just covered. Now, you're gonna notice repeating themes in my videos because I don't wanna complicate this for you. I wanna continually remind you of what works so you can do it and get results. I'm not gonna give you 100 techniques, even if I could find or validate 100 different techniques. I wanna give you what ultimately is gonna work and benefit you in doing this. And so the first one is to feel good now. You've heard me say this a billion times and you'll hear me say it a billion more, because the more you hear it, the more you're reminded of it, the more you'll do it, the more it'll be essentially at your fingertips to use on a daily basis. Now, understand you only need to do this in degrees, and for those of you who haven't heard this, essentially this is the strategy of feel good now. Now, why is this important? Because so much of that signal you're sending out, so much of what actually influences your DNA and the vibration it's going to send off and the frequency it's going to send off is your feeling. Because understand that your feeling is emotion, which is energy in motion. It is like pure energy, right? And the higher that is, the more often, the more it affects you in a way where you're sending out a coherent, powerful signal that then draws back more of what you want in your life. If you are feeling like crap all the time, first off, you're in to-me. You absolutely are, because why are you in that? Why are you feeling sorry for yourself all the time, etc.? That's ultimately, again, it's not why like you can't, you can, but ultimately it's a part of that reason, right? If you're not feeling great, it means you're in to-me. right? You've plummeted into to me. And again, this is most people's daily experience. A lot of people are in negative emotions and feeling not so good most of the time. They're resisting things, they wish things were different, etc., etc. And this is what then continues to create more of what's been showing up in their life, right? Their DNA is continually getting programmed to that, sending out that signal, and it becomes, again, I've said it many times, it becomes this perpetuating loop where people look at what's in their life, don't like it, resist it. That emotion of resistance is then calibrating you, which is then sending out that signal, which brings in more circumstances that you don't like, and then you resist those circumstances and don't feel good about those circumstances, which is calibrating you, and around and around and around and around we go. And we need to break this cycle, no more. If you want to create powerfully, we need to break this cycle. And they talk about ideas like breaking generational curses and generational cycles. This is a part of it. If you had massively negative generational cycles or people in your family, whether it was your parents, your grandparents, dating back for however long, and they were completely negative, terrible mentalities and attitudes, maybe terrible mindsets, right? You need to break that. And you can be, if you're watching the video, the one to break what we could call a generational curse, right? If it's a poverty mindset, maybe it's, again, playing the victim or whatever else it is, you can be the one to break that. And let me tell you, you can break it not easily in the sense of it'll be, require no training to do this, but it's not that complicated is what I'm getting at. And one of the ways you start breaking this is feeling good now or feeling better as much as you can. Again, when you're in tuning, this will be a little bit harder, but you're just trying to turn the dial. Again, you're doing it in degrees. You don't have to go from I feel good 2% of the time to 70% of the time. You can go from 2 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 10, but you will build momentum quickly. And the better you feel, also guess what happens? The better your thoughts will be. Your feeling especially is one of the most powerful things that connects you to a frequency, right? When you're feeling good, you're completely connected to a different frequency, right? If you're connected to joy, that's a different frequency than fear. If you're connected to love or gratitude, that is a completely different frequency, which comes with very different effects or different results than, say, hate or feeling sorry for yourself, like grief or apathy. And what exists at these different frequencies are going to be completely different realities. And again, for a lot of you may have examples, again, whether it's family and generational curses, whether it's just people you observe, you'll have examples of how their lives are when they're on these frequencies. And you have to ask yourself just a simple question. Do you also want those results? Do you want the results of people who are at these frequencies perpetuating this loop? Does that seem appealing to you? And if it is, fantastic, go ahead and do it. If it doesn't, then this is a different way in which you can break that cycle and loop and start gaining and attracting more of what you want while also feeling good, right? Also understand it feels good to feel good, right? I mean, that's the most obvious sentence ever, but sometimes we need that obvious sentence to be like, wait, if I'm feeling good, I'm enjoying my life. That should be enough of a reason just to do this or to at least get good at this. The great news for you guys and for everyone else is it also comes with the benefit of great things happening for you because it all starts at an energetic level and then eventually is brought into form. Meaning if you do this and then you do things like take the actions that come up intuitively, especially in the through me state, you'll have the physical equivalent of those frequencies, right? If you're on a certain frequency and that plays certain songs, if you stay on the frequency long enough, you're eventually going to get those songs. And those songs are akin, in this example, to manifestations. You will not get manifestations that don't correspond to the frequency you're on. And so if you stay on a frequency of feeling good most of the time or feeling better most of the time, you'll start getting the manifestations that have to come through from that. So I want to just emphasize this because sometimes like, I just feel good. Actually, yes, that is a big part of it. Oh, it can't be that simple. No, actually, it can be. It really can be. Have you tried it? Have you been feeling good the majority of the time? Have you then allowed that to calibrate your thoughts? And we're not talking about faux positivity where you say things you're grateful for when you're not feeling good, but you don't really mean those things you're grateful for. Again, you do it in degrees. Don't try and go from 5% to 70. If you're doing that, again, you might be trying to fake it. Go to what you can reach. The ladder example I give a lot is if you're on a ladder, we can call it a metaphorical ladder in this case, and you want to go 20 rungs up because you think that's the best thing. I want to get to enlightenment, but you can't reach that. Then this doesn't do anything except hurt you. Your arm gets tired, you might slip further down. So reach for the best next one. What is a rung you can reach for? That's 1 or 2 up, that's slightly better. So if you're in fear, pride is going to be ultimately better than that. You grab that and you pull yourself up. But now you're higher, which means new rungs are available. If you calibrate your station to one that's not all the way up, but a little up, suddenly your range for other ones gets closer, right? So there'll be ones that are above you that are even closer that you didn't have available when you made that first climb up, if that makes sense, right? So feel good in degrees, and one of the best ways to do this, we can actually add that to this, is have a list. And it amazes me how many people don't have this. They're not aware of the things that makes them feel good, right? They're not aware of the things that elevates their consciousness. And these are simple things too. This is sing and dance and listen to music that inspires you. Just watch videos like this, read a book. You'll also know things that will work for you. Do these things more often, right? Fill your day with these things. You got 5 minutes here, do that instead of watching TikTok, right? Or addictively. If you got like 10 minutes there, maybe go for a walk in nature, then, watch a drama-based TV show or whatever else, right? So something to consider, feeling good now or feeling better now. And again, when we say feeling good, we mean higher levels of consciousness. We're not talking necessarily about pleasure seeking or anything like that. We are talking about if you're in fear, if you go to pride or courage or neutrality or willingness or acceptance or love or joy, that is a feeling better state. Right? So understand, we're not talking it's like, oh, if I just go shoot up some cocaine. No, I was thinking of shoot up some heroin or do some cocaine. Clearly I don't do drugs. But if you do that, that's not what we're talking about, right? That's a very different thing, okay? So feeling good now, create your list. Have that list near you at all times. Saturate your mind with that list. Think about that list. If you're even just looking at the list and thinking about it, what's happening to your thoughts? How's that affecting you, right? You're sending those thoughts out. Now you're thinking better. Fantastic. So the next is environmental setup. And I mentioned this earlier, and this is kind of playing into what I said about how certain people, who are in the know, it's very few, don't let their kids, for example, on social media. They don't let them watch certain things, right? They set up their environments for success. A big part of this is the mental diet. I've gone over this before, but they're very intentional about what they're exposed to, what they learn, the information that goes in, right? They're not, if they're watching stuff, it's very, very intentional and calibrated to be beneficial. If they're reading things, same thing. Most people are not reading. Reading is one of the best ways to train yourself. This is for generations the way in which we transferred information to ourselves, or we were able to take in transmissions of high levels of information and energy. You could get one good book that is of a high conscious nature and reread that for the rest of your life and nothing else, and it will benefit your life massively. Now, luckily, you're not restricted in that way, but just doing that, if you were to read Power versus Force every single day in some way, 5 minutes here, maybe 30 minutes another day or whatever, it would change your life. Not enough people in my eyes are reading. Because when you're reading, you can't be distracted. You are engaged in it. You're not only taking in the information, but you are gaining the energetic transference of the book. Everything is vibrating. Books have frequency and vibration too, that are at certain frequencies. Certain books vibrate higher, certain books vibrate lower. And so if you acquire some of the higher vibrating books and you read those, understand that the benefit is not only the information. In fact, that is the lesser benefit, which I know might sound crazy. The higher benefit is the energetic transference that you will receive, essentially the vibration you will receive, or the frequency the book will put you on as you're engaging with it fully, right? So think of it almost like a book is a cheat code, a high-level book is a cheat code to changing the dial of your frequency. It basically takes it down and goes, oh, we're here now because this book is calibrated at 500 on the Hawking scale, which would be love. So as you engage with it, you are being essentially pumped up with that love. You are being having that energy transferred to you. I mean, one way you can look at this, if you know the idea of feng shui, which is kind of allowing an environment to have positive energy or creating space and using certain things around the room to create a good energy in a room. If you go into a room that has that, and then you go into a room that's like cluttered and messy, you will feel the difference because the energy and vibration of those rooms are different, and they will affect you and influence you differently. And it's kind of the same in this way. So you want to have a mental diet that involves reading the right things. Again, I invite you to do this. You'll have to do it, but reading the right things, exposing yourself. Videos like this can help. Again, I mentioned it's not here, but the levels video, I'll give you that at the end to take a look at. If you're watching it regularly, not from a place of distraction, but from a place of curiosity and from a place of wanting to expand your awareness and also apply what you're learning, right? If you're watching 8 hours of my videos, I love it. Thank you for helping me in the algorithm, but I wouldn't recommend that. Right? And why I mean that is because at that point it's probably a distraction. Now, every now and again you might do something like that. I've done stuff like that before where I've really had a deep dive into someone's work or something else, and it's been of great benefit. But that is few and far between. Right? If you're watching stuff all the time, it's like, well, at some point that stuff should inspire you to move. And again, you have to make that choice to move. So again, know that I'm trying to be as authentic with saying that because, again, it would benefit me if you watch just my stuff for a very long time. But it's not going to benefit you in the highest way possible to do that. Watch 1, maybe 2, take the inspiration from that, run with it. Right? That's going to be a great way to engage. Right? So readings 1, what you're watching, a big part is going to be what you're eliminating. Like I said, I would eliminate things like browsing on social media too much. I would be very careful about what you're exposing to yourself to on that. This can also be your physical environments, right? So again, the people you hang out with, are they incredibly negative? You might want to tone down the amount of time and energy you're giving to that because you will be influenced by it. And this goes the other way too. Can you start hanging out with people who are of a higher influence? One of basically my main coaching, we take about 5 to 10 people at a time and we play to this in a positive way. We bring 5 to 10 already, it's called level 2, so by me, a higher level of by me, looking to move to through me. We take 5 to 10 of those people in my coaching. And because they're not only receiving the coaching and the information and help from me, but also in an environment of other people like that, their growth becomes exponential. They start growing faster and faster. Now, you can take coaching with me if that's something you're ready for, but you can also just in your immediate life start, if you know someone who's like that, see if you can start spending some more time with them. See if you can spend time at places where you know more of that kind of person exists. That's going to help you massively. I mean, that's going to be one of the best environmental setups for success that you can possibly do. Napoleon Hill called this the Mastermind effect. I don't know if he coined Mastermind. I mean, it was an idea that was known about for ages. That's why they had secret societies. That's why they had all of these different things where people would gather to discuss these cool ideas and how reality works, because being around more people like that, more minds, helps you learn it faster, helps you raise your energy, and so much more, right? So you want to make sure you're setting up your environment for success. And again, I've given you some ideas on how you can do this. Now, we also have to talk about energetic anchors. Because if you are holding on to, let's say, a lot of emotional trauma, or what I call energetic anchors, so blocked energy, stuck energy, it's pulling you down to lower frequencies. It's kind of like the dial on the radio station just refuses to go any higher because you have these anchors pulling you down. And the way you can think of it is like you're suspended in water. And if there was no encumbrance, right? If there was nothing weighing you down, what would naturally happen? You would just start floating up. And towards the top, and as you start floating up, you are reaching higher levels of consciousness, which, by the way, is your natural birthright and your natural vibration. If you were just removed everything, all the encumbrances and all the things weighing you down. However, a lot of us have things weighing us down. This is why people will say, oh, you're high vibe AF, right? It's very true. But you have to essentially remove the things that are covering your light. And this is what we do when it comes to releasing anchors. And this is going to be key for your DNA, because if those anchors are affecting your vibration, which is calibrating your DNA, right? If it's affecting your thoughts and the way you feel, again, if you struggle to feel good, you want to do this heavily. You want to do a lot of this shadow work and letting go, because naturally we can feel very good. Naturally, our state is higher consciousness, naturally. But we pick up a bunch of things, traumas or whatever else that weigh us down. However, it need not remain there. We can make the choice to intentionally and consciously clear and release those anchors or energetic blocks. And this is where shadow work comes in. I've gone over this a lot of times. And so what I'm going to do, instead of going into another deep dive in here, so we don't have another, I already did a video, I think that's over an hour. I will spare you on this one. That one needed to be over an hour because of what we were talking about. But what I will say is I do have shadow work videos that you can look at, and I will link you to one in the description. How about we do that? So if you know, okay, I'm really struggling to feel good. Like that's my biggest, I keep saying encumbrance, that's my biggest block right now. I'm really into the word encumbrance right now. That is my biggest limitation. Let's use that. Right now, I'm just really struggling to feel good because every time I try, I key into this memory or I key into this feeling. There's some block there. Fantastic. Focus on releasing anchors, focus on shadow work. So I will link that down below. And essentially what it's going to help you do is look at that anchors that we usually ignore and go, oh, what happened if I snipped that anchor away from me? Oh, I start to rise. What if I snip that anchor away from me? Oh, I start to rise. And in those videos, I'll give you some techniques that will help you do exactly that. Now, what I recommend you do next, unless you want to do the shadow work first, is go to this video because this is where I go over the 3 levels, right? That expands more into me, by me, and through me, but most importantly, tells you where you are on that scale so you know where to start and what to do. And I even give you resources in that video about what to look at, what to read, all this different stuff, depending on your level. So I would have you go watch that next.